Before Matthew tried to murder me, and nearly succeeded, you could say I was the happiest woman on earth. That's not just a thought. I'm saying it now, out loud. It wasn't just the irresistible physical attraction that often marks the beginning of a relationship. Matthew and I were kindred spirits, two souls with the same dreams and ideals, the same quirks and humor. I hate to say it, but it sounds like something out of a mediocre movie, but sometimes we finished each other's sentences as if we were twins, identical twins. Matt and I and Matt. I met him at a friend's party. I hadn't been involved with men or had any exciting dates for months, so I initially expected nothing when I saw an attractive man standing in a corner of a room, wearing black jeans and a dark shirt, sporting a stubble beard and brown, curly, shoulder-length hair. He was relaxed and animatedly talking with Kathy, the hostess. He held a beer in his hand and exuded something rugged and resolute. And yet, there was something vulnerable and sweet about him. I can't remember who I was talking to or what the conversation was about, only that around midnight, as the music grew louder and the fridge emptier, I caught his gaze. 10 minutes later, Matt was pouring me a glass of wine in the kitchen, and I knew, this is the one. I won't bore you with the tales of our first romantic dates and endless summer weekends filled with sex, conversations, and laughter, because they were plentiful. No. I'd rather tell you what happened afterward. Exactly a year after Matt and I met, he moved in with me. I live in a spacious apartment on the city's edge, with more than enough room for two. I was over the moon. Matthew Clayton, the adventurous, free-spirited bachelor, couldn't wait to start living together, to begin and end each day together. I gave him a spare key with a tag on it. It read, "On the journey to something beautiful. Welcome to our home." The first months were fantastic, and I couldn't understand what my friends were complaining about when they moaned about their lazy boyfriends who did nothing around the house, left their dirty socks lying around, and had no idea what the vacuum cleaner was. Matthew was different. He had lived alone for a long time and was hugely independent. The toilet shone every day, and the kitchen was cleaner than my mom's. Every room was always, without fail, tidy. I had to pinch myself when I came back from sports one Saturday and found he had bought flowers for the 3rd time that month. Sunflowers, my favorite, and placed them in a colorful vase. Sunflower, or Sunny, that's what he called me. It sounds too good to be true. And it was. It was December when Matthew went to see a friend. I was at home, tired from a long work day, and I needed to buy a present for my father's birthday and wanted to order a book online, but my phone was dead. On the table lay Matt's phone. He had forgotten it. There were conversations with an ex-girlfriend he had once told me about, but had sworn he wanted nothing to do with anymore, and another new woman, Julia. She was blonde and stunningly beautiful, and from what I had read, unaware that her lover was living with me. I remember my hands trembling and a heavy feeling in my chest that wouldn't go away, like a piece of food stuck in your throat. When Matthew came home from his friends, if he had been there at all, I showed him his phone, the enlarged profile of this beautiful blonde. I said nothing. "What is that? What have you... You looked through my phone?" "Who is this?" I asked, trying hard not to let my voice break. "You looked through my phone." "Who is this woman?" I screamed. "This woman who calls you delicious and irresistible, and whom you've probably just come from?" And then, before he could answer, something scary happened. His face froze and his expression turned cold. as if something dead had crawled into his eyes. He grabbed my hair and kept repeating that I should stay away from his things. As I tried to free myself, disjointed, panicky thoughts swirled in my head. I catch him cheating, and he keeps hammering on about privacy. I screamed and yelled. His hands moved to my throat, muffling my voice. We fell to the ground, me on my back and him on top, his thumbs pressing against my throat. My hand scratched and pulled at his wrist, and all the while, that expressionless face loomed over me. It was as if he didn't care, as if this was the logical consequence of an unfortunate mistake I had made, and this was my deserved punishment. Before I lost consciousness, I remember thinking, I had made a terrible mistake. I didn't know him at all. I was living with a man I thought I knew, but he was a stranger. He must have gotten off me because when I regained consciousness, he was sitting helplessly on the floor, his head buried in his hands. It looked like he was crying. He just sat there, rocking himself back and forth in an inexplicable mad silence. After that, Matthew Clayton stopped speaking to me. I'll spare you the lengthy legal proceedings, but he was convicted. His sentence was much harsher than I had expected, but that made me feel empowered to start picking up my life again. But I couldn't. I can barely get out of bed. My body and mind are intensely tired, as if I am constantly burdened with questions and difficult tasks. But I'm not. I don't work anymore. I don't see anyone anymore. No one calls me. No one visits, as if I were the one who had tried to murder a loved one. I'm alone, in my bed, completely isolated from the life I once led. My voice is still damaged, and there are days when nothing more than a whisper comes out of my mouth, which is kind of a sad metaphor for the person I once was. I have been reduced to a shadow of myself. Shadows. That is what I must talk about now. The end of the story. Someone once told me, I think it was Kathy, who hosted that fateful party about Murphy's Law, that bad things never come alone. I am not only confined to my house and isolated from the outside world, but since Matthew's attempts to silence me, I hear voices. At first, I thought I heard them in my head, but that is not the case. They come from the walls. I know. I understand after hearing the story that you might think that I'm insane, that it might be the neighbors I hear, but it is not. There is nothing wrong with me mentally. I hear voices in my house, and always in the evenings. They're muffled voices, as if they don't want to be heard. Sometimes I can almost understand them. I've even tried to make contact, just to ask what these voices want, but I get no response, as if I'm speaking a foreign language. There are two voices, I believe. Two voices. A male and a female. And I think...
Wait! Quiet!
Listen very carefully.
There it is again.
What do you mean?
I heard a voice again. Did you hear it too? You must have.
Honey, please. You're seeing ghosts. Hearing ghosts.
I'm telling you, just like the other night, I hear a voice. A woman's voice. Very soft, like a whisper. Listen.
A woman's voice? Well, I think I know what it is. It must be that murdered woman killed by her boyfriend who now haunts our house as a ghost forever. I'm going to bed.